Survivor 46 is here, and so is On Fire, the only official Survivor podcast, and we have a twist this season. The winner of Survivor 45, Dee Valladares, will be joining us every week.
We're going behind the scenes of the biggest moments, the how and the why things happen, and the strategy and analysis you can only get from someone like me, a Survivor winner.
Listen to On Fire, the official Survivor podcast, wherever you get your podcast.
With threats to our nation waiting around every corner, adaptability is more important than ever. When conditions change without notice, quick strategic thinking is crucial. And with obstacles consistently impending, determination is essential in overcoming them. It's this willingness, decisiveness, and resilience that sets Marines apart. With our fighting spirit, we don't just fight battles, we win them. Marines are the constant our nation counts on to fight the unknown. And through adaptable problem solving, we do just that. Learn more at marines.com.
With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to... Has anyone seen the bride and groom?
Sorry, we're here. We were getting lucky in the limo and we lost track of time.
No, Lucky Land Casino, with cash prizes that add up quicker than a guest registry.
In that case, I pronounce you lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Daily bonuses are waiting. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
See the ability, not the disability. That was one of the long-term impacts of the 2012 Paralympic Games in London. In the decade since, athletes from Great Britain and Northern Ireland have consistently competed at the very highest level of disability sport. The organisation responsible for selecting and preparing the teams for both the Summer and Winter Games is the British Paralympic Association. I'm Michael.
And I'm John. Founded in 1989, the BPA is a registered charity and recently unveiled their new strategy to inspire a better world for disabled people through sport. The BPA has also faced a number of challenges brought about by the pandemic, including the delayed Tokyo Games and the then troubled build-up to Beijing following the invasion by Russia of Ukraine. There's been a number of big calls for the man in charge.
Hi, I'm Mike Sharrock. I'm the Chief Executive of the British Paralympic Association.
Mike, great to have you on Great British Bosses from Anything But Footy. And coming off the back of two, what I guess you will look back on as successful Paralympic Games, the Summer Games in Tokyo, followed hot on the heels by the Winter Games in Beijing.
Yes, it's been a remarkable time for everybody, hasn't it, the last couple of years? And that was very much a first for us, delivering teams to 2 games in 6 months. We normally get a bit more of a break in between. But it was an incredible time, and it was just incredible to see how the athletes responded to having to train during the pandemic and the incredible success that they achieved at both Tokyo and Beijing. It was remarkable. It sort of says a lot, doesn't it? Not only to their skill and how brilliant they are as athletes, but also to their resilience. And it was just such an incredible story of resilience from the team. And in a way, I guess that's sort of what the Paralympics stands for. In some ways, it's not surprising that the athletes were able to go and do that, but it was just incredible.
And let's talk about your athletes, because Paralympics GB is one of the standout success stories of sport in this country, not just in the last couple of years, but now over at least a decade.
In the UK, I think we should feel very proud of our athletes and what they've achieved. I think UK was, of course, the birthplace of the Paralympic movement all those years ago. But I think what the real moment where we saw that shift in the UK was London 2012, of course. But I think London was the time that the world saw Paralympic sport as elite sport for the first time at scale. I think a lot of people knew it was beforehand, but I think just the way in which it was so brilliantly projected by Channel 4 and the work that they did. But just the fact that we had 80,000 people at every single session inside the stadium cheering on our team and cheering on the athletes. I think it was a really pivotal moment for the movement, both in terms of how they're seen as elite athletes, but also I think that was the moment where we could really see the impact that our athletes had on shifting attitudes to disability. And I think something very special happened in the UK that summer, which is still there. I think people did start to focus more on the ability rather than the disability, and that's continued since then. Having said that, of course, there's still an awful lot more that still needs to be done. If you're disabled in the UK, you're still less likely to work, you're less likely to play sport, and maybe you're more likely to feel excluded from society in some way. So there's an awful lot more to do, but it was a huge moment for us.
And talking about elite sport, you quite rightly mentioned London 2012 as being a game-changing moment. But before that, the introduction of lottery money in the late 90s, does that just go to show that a properly funded model can work in Paralympic sport as well?
I think so, yes. And I think it's been a tremendous story of success over the last 20 years. And I know our athletes are, hugely appreciative of that. And if we look around the world, I just think we can feel very fortunate that we're part of a system that recognizes our Paralympians for what they are, which is brilliant sports people. And I think many countries in the world aren't at that place yet. I think they're catching up fast. I think a lot of people have seen what we're doing in the UK and are trying to replicate that. But I think there's no doubt that the fact that Paralympians are seen alongside Olympians as they should be, and that the same funding opportunities are available to them sits absolutely behind that success.
Let's talk a bit about the British Paralympic Association, because the athletes get funded through their NGBs, the national governing bodies. But you guys at the British Paralympic Association, not necessarily in receipt of lots of government money, you need to raise your own finance. You are a charity, is that correct?
Yeah, that is right. We've got two roles at the BPA. Our first role, in a way, is it's our job to get a best prepared team to the games, to the summer games and the winter games. So we're responsible for the selection and getting the team to the games and managing the team at the games. And we take that job really seriously. We do everything we possibly can. We've got a fantastic team at the BPA who work really hard, not just at games time, but through the whole 4-year period leading up to the games, because we do believe that everything we can do to make sure that every single athlete can compete at their best when it matters most is just so important, not only for the success that we see, and we've had fantastic success from Tokyo and Beijing and previously, but it's the impact that success has and that the success brings with it. So we are really clear, and there's a lot of evidence from London that it is those inspiring performances of the athletes that lead to people thinking differently about disability. And that is the second part of what we do at the BPA. We are committed to help to drive the social change that comes from those performances in the best way we can. And so we've got a really ambitious plan over the coming years to try and do more. So it's not just about shifting attitudes to disability, but we want to find the partnerships and like-minded people so that we can turn those performances into real change for disabled people in the UK.
And to put it bluntly, how do you pay for that? How are you financed? And when games are postponed, as Tokyo was, how much of a challenge was that in terms of the profit and loss?
Yeah, it was a huge challenge. I mean, we weren't alone, of course. It was a challenge for, as you say, we're a charity, and many, many charities across the UK were hugely challenged going through the pandemic, and we were too. We are a charity. We do get some funding from UK Sport, from the lottery funding, and for which we're very, very grateful. It's around about 13 or 14% of what we spend over a cycle. So the rest of it, we need to go out and raise ourselves. So we've got a great commercial team here at the BPA. We've got some fantastic commercial partners who, basically share our vision for trying to create a more inclusive world through the sport. And So, but we've always got to do more, and certainly the pandemic was a challenge. We were in a situation where many of those partnerships were due to run through till the end of 2020, and of course we weren't able to offer our partners the highlight of that partnership, which was the Summer Games at the end of it. So we sat down with each of them. They just responded brilliantly because they supporting us for all the right reasons, and we were able to work that out with the partners. We extended through to Tokyo, and many of them are staying with us through to Paris. But it is, it's something that continues with, it's a big part of what we have to do, which is to raise the money to allow us to send the team to the games, and also to help drive the impact that comes on the back of that.
And I think one of the things that I would like to get across is that the British Paralympic Association is separate to the British Olympic Association. Does it frustrate you when you pick up during Paralympics time and see headlines saying Team GB have won medals at the Paralympics? Because it's not Team GB, it's Paralympics GB.
No, it doesn't frustrate me, but I think it does frustrate certain members of my team, of course, and that's inevitable. I mean, we are different. We're not the same as the BOA. I mean, as it happens, we share an office with them, and we do an awful lot of things together. We talk to one another a lot. We do a lot of the same things, so we share a lot. But we are two separate organisations, and the BOA are part of they're a member of the International Olympic Committee organisation, and we're a member of the International Paralympic Committee organisations, and those are two separate organisations that come together for the games and do a lot together. But no, so we work hard to build the Paralympics GB brand. But you're right, there are still people who confuse that and think we're all part of Team GB. Team GB is a brilliant team, and as is Paralympics GB, and we're very proud of the fact that from the research that we do across the UK, a lot of people feel that Paralympics GB is the most inspiring elite sports team that the UK has. So we're proud of our own position, but there is always more work to do, of course.
Is there an appetite from either side to come together, perhaps, and become one entity? They have it in America, of course.
They do have it in the US, and there are one or two other countries that do it as well. I don't think there's any serious appetite for that. I mean, I think it might well have been looked at in the past. I think we are different organizations, and I think we feel that we are best served, and our athletes are best served from being separate and being apart. I think one of the things that we are really conscious of, and if you look at the people that work at the BPA, they are generally people that love sport, but they're also highly motivated by the social impact that sits behind what we do. And I think we're very conscious of our role as a charity allows us to access funding and do other things, and keep the focus on making sure that we're using those performances to drive change, and to work with different kinds of partners to drive change. So I think there could be some efficiencies that could come together from if we were combined, but I think there's bigger reasons why we should stay apart.
So let's talk a bit about you, Mike. How does the man from BP become the CEO of the BPA? Yes,
I thought you might ask me that. It wasn't planned, I tell you. Sometimes things happen in life. So yeah, I had I joined BP a long time ago. I had a 30-year career with them. I came out of university into BP. I think, if I remember, they were the only people that offered me a job, and I asked lots of people, so I was very grateful to have a job. But I had a brilliant 30 years with them, and loved every minute of it. Very international in terms of what I did. So I lived around the world in different places doing different things. But then the big change happened when BP became a partner of London 2012 back in 2008. And so, of course, I put my hand up to say, oh, I'd like to get involved in that. So I had the privilege of leading that team. It started with a team of 2. And at games time, we had 1,000 people on the team. And in a sense, it just showed what an impact London 2012 had on, we were we were just a small part of a much bigger thing. And it was just such a privilege to be part of that. When I took on that role, the first thing I did was go out to Beijing and watch the summer games. I went to the Olympics and thought, wow, this is incredible. But then I went back for the Paralympics. And I guess it was quite personal. I was completely blown away by what I experienced at the Paralympics. I'd never experienced anything like that before. And I did feel what many people feel when they watch Paralympics, is you have thousands of disabled people coming together, but actually you just see the ability, you just see the incredible ability of these incredible athletes. And it really struck me. And I realized that it was going to be a big thing in London in 4 years' time. And so we put the Paralympics right at the heart of what we did. And so I guess that's, from that moment, I've been hooked. And so when I left BP back in 2015, again, I kept in touch with the Paralympic movement, and I actually went back to school. I did a master's in coaching and behavior change for 3 years at the Henley Business School, and loved it, and was coaching. And one of my clients happened to be the International Paralympic Committee, so I would go over to Bonn every now and again. But this wasn't planned, and I think it was just when the opportunity came along, I was asked to sort of throw my hat in the ring, which I did. And it just seemed like one of those things that felt right. And I do feel incredibly privileged to be doing this job. I mean, it is the most fantastic thing to be part of. And there is such a great team here at the BPA. So it's a real privilege to be leading them.
Who wooed who? Did you have to go to the BPA with a presentation and said, this is my vision? Or did they have to come to you and say, this is your package?
Well, it's a bit of a funny story, I guess, because I got a call from a headhunter who wanted me to come in and talk about it. And I guess quite naively, I just genuinely thought he wanted some advice because of my involvement with the Paralympics. So I went in and had a chat, and I was very happily sharing my view about the role and what they needed. He asked me how much money they should pay. I said, oh, don't pay very much because you want someone with passion for the role. And then, of course, he then asked me, well, what about you? And it literally hadn't crossed my mind, because I was, at that point, I had my own little coaching business and I was happily doing that. But I then went away and thought about it, and it just felt like the right thing. And so, having scuppered my own salary, I had to make sure it was something that I really wanted to do, which of course it was.
So did you go back and add another naught onto the end?
No, unfortunately not, but that's okay, because I think there are some things that you do because you're really passionate about it, and this is sort of my motivation for doing this. And I'm very, very happy with the salary I get paid, but that's not what it's all about, of course.
So when you joined the BPA, what were the challenges, if you like, on day one? Because sometimes a CEO will come in, they might need to execute a culture change. They might need to rebalance an organization. What did you arrive thinking you needed to do?
I think the biggest challenge at the time was funding. And I think as we talked about it a moment ago, but as a charity, the BPA is always needing to make sure it can secure the funds to do what it wants to do. And I think when I arrived, the funding was quite fragile, and it still is to a certain extent, but the funding was quite fragile. And the risk, of course, if you're in a situation where you're not sure about your funding, is that it can, if you're not careful, limit your ability to sort of think about the possibilities of what you can do. And so I think trying to get the funding sorted out, which I've spent a lot, we as an organization have spent a lot of time over the last few years doing that. And doing that during the pandemic has been additionally challenging, has been really important. I mean, having said that, we've had some fantastic support from UK Sport. UK Sport really really get what we're trying to do, and they have they stepped in when we needed some additional help during the pandemic as well, as did our corporate partners. But I think we are now in a more secure financial position than we were going into the pandemic, and I think that allows us to start to really make sure that we're not leaving anything on the table in a way, so that we're really able to think through, what are the possibilities. And we've just recently published our new 10-year strategy. I mean, actually, it's the first time we've published a 10-year strategy. We've tended in the past to think in 4-year cycles, but of course, the world doesn't always operate in 4-year cycles. And by thinking slightly longer term, we're able to be more ambitious in terms of what we can do with the movement, what we can do to try and help shift attitudes to disability and improve lives for disabled people in the UK. So we've got big plans over the coming years in terms of what we want to do on that side of things as well.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. Obviously, the British Paralympic Association prepares teams for a summer games and a winter games. But do you feel, and you've probably just said, yes, you do you feel that responsibility that actually you've got a wider societal role as far as disabled people in this country are concerned?
We do. We feel that very strongly. And I think if you ask anyone in the BPA, they all feel that. I think every single person in the BPA, no matter what their role, I mean, we're a relatively small team. We have, 35 of us or so at the BPA. And every single person is involved, no matter what they're doing, is involved in helping to drive social impact, helping to make change happen, helping to shift attitudes to disability and get the focus onto ability. And so we do feel a responsibility, and we are fortunate to be working with some really great partners, not just commercial partners, others as well, working with organizations like Channel 4, for instance, who really feel that passionately. I mean, they bring a passion to their work at the Paralympics, which is clear to see in terms of how they go about what they do and what they do. And so we feel that, and we are, we'd like, our aim is to carry on making sure that we do as much as we possibly can over the coming years to make change happen. We want to work with athletes, because athletes are the biggest ambassadors. We, in a sense, many current and former Paralympians who, they're busy out there day by day, making change happen in their communities. And we think there's probably more we can do to support them in what they're doing. So that'll be at the heart of our plans over the coming years.
And you mentioned Channel 4, Kate Clayton from Channel 4, who's the sports partnership lead, has been a previous guest on Great British Bosses. We had Craig Spence from the IPC, and I was going to ask you about the partnership with the IPC, because I've been really impressed with the IPC broadly over the past couple of years, more impressed than I have with the IOC, I should probably say. And I thought their We the 15 campaign, I'd never thought about it, in all honesty. Maybe that's me being naive, Mike, but I'd never thought about it. 15%. It hadn't ever occurred to me that was the figure that was put on it. And I just thought that campaign was so effective.
It absolutely is, and both Channel 4 and IPC are fantastic organizations. And it's a lot of people, that's 1.2 billion people or thereabouts who have a disability around the world. And the IPC, I think, have done a fantastic job over the last couple of years in drawing attention to that and bringing some of the world's biggest organizations together to create this campaign around that. And I think it's just at the beginning of that campaign. So I think that this is something that they will continue to run for the next, for the coming years. I think it's over a 10-year period or more even. And using the power of the games to throw a light on that, and to try and make sure that, we talk about legacy and we throw that word around, but to try and make sure that real change happens. So, the IPC is all about change happening through sport, and that's our responsibility here in the UK as well.
regarding the situation ahead of the Winter Paralympics, obviously the invasion of Ukraine, they got the decision right in the end. Is that a fair comment, I think?
Yeah, I think so. I do sympathise with them. The IPC, they got the decision right. There was an enormous amount of political pressure for them to do that. I think they were the fact that they sort of made the previous day, of course, they had made a decision to allow Russian and Belarus athletes to compete as neutrals, and I think the fact that the following day they changed the decision as they did was partly reflective of the pressure they were under at that time, but also partly a reflection of sort of the really serious thinking that was going on within the IPC. They are very conscious about supporting all disabled people all around the world and trying, I think there was an attempt to sort of try and keep politics out of sport and to try and sit above that and if they could, but the reality I think was different, and so they made that decision as they did. And of course, we're all, it's just horrific what's happened over the last month, and we're in discussions with the Ukraine NPC around how we can help, and we're really keen to see how we can help if we can, whether that's in trying to find some funding for them or just trying to make sure that people have access to sporting training facilities. So we're in discussions at the moment on that.
Was there ever any pressure on you as an organisation not to go and not compete in Beijing?
No, not directly. I mean, we were having conversations with ministers in the lead up to that. If you remember, the timing, it was the day after the Olympics had finished, which is not the first time that's happened. And so there were obviously lots of conversations going on. We were talking to the ministers at DCMS, sports minister and others regularly, and so there was clear political pressure for exclusion, but no direct pressure on the BPA. I mean, we clearly had some requests, but I wouldn't call it as pressure.
Was it an option, or did you put your athletes at the centre of it? These are athletes that have trained for 4 years. This is their moment. There's no thought in my mind that we won't give those athletes the opportunity to compete.
Well, I think things happened as they did. So that was, that's where we got to. I think had a different decision been made, had the decision been made not to exclude the Russian and Belarus athletes, then I don't quite know what would have happened at that point. I think had Ukraine decided to pull out, then I think there would have been pressure on others to do the same. But we didn't get to that point. But clearly it would have been something that we would have had to think very hard about and take a decision on very quickly.
You did get to the point, though, that the games began. You marched in an opening ceremony and you won a medal on day one, and that kind of set the pattern for what was a very successful Beijing 2022.
Yeah, no, it was. And to come away with 6 medals and to create, there were some fantastic performances there. The first ever gold medal on snow for a British skier, with Neil and Andrew Simpson, and whether that's Olympic or Paralympic, was just brilliant. First ever snowboard medal for Paralympics as well. So I mean, some really brilliant performances, and that actually not just the medal performances. There were an awful lot of athletes who competed, who competed at their best and delivered some personal best performances. So they should feel really, really pleased. Going back to Tokyo, if you think about what happened in Tokyo as well, to not only to come second in the medal table there, but to win medals in 18 out of 19 sports was just something that no other nation has ever come close to before. So the performances of both winter and summer have just been staggering over the last months.
And the fact that we have Paris, then we have Cortina, and then obviously Los Angeles, we've got Brisbane. The fact that these, I guess, are host cities that, on the surface at least, don't appear to have any kind of risks attached or no baggage attached. Do you understand what I mean by that?
I do, and I'm sure we'll find issues to deal with. So there's a lot to look forward to. I think we're very busy now with Paris. The plans are well advanced for Paris. We've had teams been over there several times. I've been over there a couple of times, going again a couple of times over the next few weeks. So at this stage, it's all about securing the facilities that we need for the team, working with the sports on their prep camp facilities to make sure we've got that right, making sure we've got the right facilities for the athletes in Paris, and to organise a Paralympics GB house so that people that are coming over to the games can that we can bring people together and all that sort of thing. So lots of work going on at the moment from the team, but it's going to be really exciting. And of course, what's going to be brilliant is, Paris is right next door, so very easy for us to get over to. But it's just going to be fantastic to have spectators back in the stands again and have friends and family that can be over there. I think that's the thing in a way that is such a shame for Tokyo and Beijing. The Japanese and Chinese did such a great job in putting on those games in really difficult circumstances, and it was just such a shame that they weren't able to have their to have the stadiums full of spectators. And thinking back to London, that amazing summer that we had in 2012, when so many people went in and were able to experience Paralympic sport for the first time, and that's what really made the shift happen, as well, of course, as what Channel 4 did and how they projected it. So that it'll be great in Paris to, fingers crossed, to be able to do that again. And I know for the athletes, it's not the same when you're competing in an empty stadium and your friends and family aren't there. I'm deal for Paralympic athletes, and it's going to be great that we can do that again in Paris.
And on that, of course, final point is it's happening in the right time zone. So whereas London 2012 made superstars of the likes of Ellie Simmons, Hannah Cockcroft, others whose names we know, Johnny Peacock, I could go on. The fact we have Paris, Milan, Cortina, it's going to be on prime time, Channel 4. We're going to make another little generation of Paralympic superstars, hopefully.
We will. And there's no doubt about that. We are set to experience some more amazing performances, and both from our existing team. The thing about Paralympians, the number of Paralympians who continue to amaze us games after games. I remember in Tokyo watching Lee Pearson get another 3 gold medals. It's just incredible, and there are so many that do that. And so, but we will have lots more new stars coming through, and it'll be brilliant. So we can't wait for that. And of course, those performances are so important, because it's those performances that continue to shift attitudes, and that's part of what our job is too.
Well, I'll make a promise to you now that we'll be following you on that journey to Paris, Milan, Cortina and beyond as well here on Anything But Footy. Mike Sharrock, Chief Executive of the British Paralympic Association, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much indeed. Thanks.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
It is Ryan here, and I have a question for you. What do you do when you win? Are you a fist pumper, a woohooer, a hand clapper, a high fiver? I kind of like the high five, but if you want to hone in on those winning moves, check out Chumba Casino. At ChumbaCasino.com, choose from hundreds of social casino-style games for your chance to redeem serious cash prizes. There are new game releases weekly, plus free daily bonuses, so don't wait. Start having the most fun ever at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.